Cool, so that should be everyone. Hello and welcome to a very special event today. For those who are a part of my watch-along server that are listening live and those who are following me on Twitter, you'll probably already know what this is. However, our YouTube viewers may not, so today we'll be doing a special guest interview with Michael White, known for writing children's shows such as Thomas and Friends and Pablo. Say hello, Michael.
Hello.
Great stuff. And also joining us today to do the actual interview itself, the man-child known as Sodor's NWR Steam on YouTube and Twitter. Say hello, George.
Hello.
Awesome. I'm personally really looking forward to hearing what's going to be said, but quickly just before we begin, I'd like to mention that this interview will not be being monetized. However, we'd all like to encourage you to donate to the Autism NI charity, also known as Northern Ireland's Autism Charity. Links to that will be put in the tweet-along discussion chat on my Discord server, and also down below in the YouTube description for our viewers on YouTube. It's a lovely charity. It's run by parents and supports parents and people with autism to get the proper help they need, regardless of their circumstance. I'll be making a donation to it in the next few days when I get paid for my job. Anyways, I'm sure you're all probably bored of hearing my voice now, so without further ado, if you two want to take things away.
Get ready to get bored hearing our voices.
Nah. Right.
It's our turn now.
Take it away.
Well, yeah. Hello. I'm George, also known as Sodor's NWR Steam. And I'm delighted to be watching. Oh, yeah. Sorry. Hello.
Yeah.
Michael.
Yeah, sorry.
Hello. Yeah. I'm delighted to be joined by Michael to watch some of Michael's episodes today. So, how are you, Michael?
I'm pretty good. All good. Looking forward to this.
Excellent. And I do have to ask before we begin, how does it feel watching these episodes on the other side of the process? You know, now they're out in the world, we can all access them. Is it weird? Is it different to how you first envisioned it? What's that experience like?
It is kind of like scary at times, because you actually are seeing something that you've written like over a year ago, and back then you pictured something different, but then when you see it in the final form, you think to yourself, well, that's actually very close to what I actually envisioned. In fact, some of my early episodes were literally like portrayed exactly how I envisioned it, and I was very surprised that they actually managed to get exactly the right shots, and without me even telling the team out there to film these shots and angles.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Probably it must have been whatever way I've written the script or whatever must have given a message to them to say, "Yep, this is the angle I think they'll probably be wanting," and yeah, what you see is the final result.
Excellent. Well, I think we're about to see one of the first results, because I believe
Yes.
Hunt the Truck, though it was the second of your episodes aired, was actually the first one that was written.
Yes, it was the first one I came up with because I just wanted to write an episode about Edward. In fact, that was actually what Andrew Renner asked me when I started. He says, "Right, which character do you want to write about?" And I says, "Can I write about Edward, please?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure. I think there's a way we can incorporate him in. Let's see what you can come up with." And Hunt the Truck was that.
Excellent. But also, of course, you've got Bill and Ben in there. And anyone who reads the Railway series as well will know that there's a strong relationship between those engines and Edward.
Yeah, because I mean, when I started the episode, I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to write an episode about Edward. What have we not seen from Edward? And I remember that we have the renders of Bill and Ben, so I thought, well, we haven't seen him interact with Bill and Ben for, when was it, Series 3? So I thought, yeah, let's bring that trope back. And yeah, that's why I thought of it. And it worked so well. I was so pleased to be writing that again. And it was, yeah, definitely quite fun to write.
Well, I've got to say, Michael, in that respect, it seems like quite a classic story. You've got these beloved characters, and obviously, whilst you're a fan, you're approaching this from a professional context. Are there any challenges making that move from seeing the episodes that you know so well to creating your own in a new context?
Basically, I just kind of wrote it because when I started there, I didn't really know much about the new formula and that there. So, like for fantasy sequences and that there, I pretty much just guessed what the whole form of it was and what way the storytelling of it all was. So, most of it, like from Hunt the Truck and Engine Many Colors, it's pretty much me just guessing the formula that they used throughout the whole series and just try and make it as best as I possibly can.
That's really interesting that you say that, because it seems to integrate not just with the Sodor episodes, but the other episodes taking Thomas overseas really well. It all seems to marry into that. I want to say almost a slightly more energetic sense of humour that's come out of the last few years of the show. So was that in your mind when you were writing these episodes?
Basically, I just wrote down like stuff that I just thought was pretty funny to say, or just like
Yeah.
move a few words around. Like for that example there with one of the twins just calling Edward a spoil sport. That was just my initiative, just like saying like what would they actually say? Just like spoil sport.
Yeah, yeah. And I suppose the fact that you are so familiar with these characters means that you do get that insight to think
Yeah.
about how they would respond. But you've also got Nia here as well. So was that a challenge, focusing on the new characters as well?
Well, I didn't at the time as well. I didn't know about their designs really, so I didn't really know what engine Nia was going to be and what her personality was. So I just pretty much just thought like, well, she's a new character being brought in, and I thought, well, Edward's moved out of Timothy's sheds at this point now, and there's some things on the line that she's probably not aware of. So Edward, in this case, she was more or less he was more or less just a sort of like a guidance to Nia, like for example, just being aware of Bill and Ben and their antics, like similar to how he was with Thomas in The Adventure Begins, being like a mentor to him.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I think towards the end of the story, it seems he's quite a fatherly figure to them, definitely.
Yeah, and that's what I kind of like about Edward. He's just that kind of person. He just likes to help people out and do the best he can to help them out with whatever problems they have. But in this bit here, this clip here, we do see that he can still have a bit of fun every now and again,
Yes.
if it's only just to make certain characters see sense and to see the errors of their ways.
He's clearly playing the long game in turning it back on Bill and Ben.
Yeah, and did a good job actually.
I think so. But I suppose the question I want to ask about that then is, when you're approaching these characters that have been around for so many years, creating new stories, is there... But because obviously, we know Edward to be kind and fatherly, but we might not know him to have that sense of humour as much. So when you're approaching these characters, do you think, well, I want to give them new dimensions, or is it more, I want to be true to what they were before? Does that come into it at all?
It's more or less just mixing both, really. To be honest, it's I like to incorporate more of the original stuff, but also have try to incorporate the new formula as well, because as things go, we have to move on with the times out there. But it's also nice to look back at the old stuff as well, just to show that it's even though we're moving on to a new stage, it doesn't mean we've forgotten some of the previous stuff before. So
yeah,
it's something I would mostly like to incorporate in. This sequence, by the way, I stated one time that this original fantasy sequence was actually a lot darker than the original, so I best not disclose as to how it actually originally went, but because it will be too sad and just ruin everybody's childhood.
Just leave the ominous mystery of that to hang in the air.
As far as the conversation I remember with Andrew, like he called me back after I sent the first draft, and he says, "Yeah, this is really good here. One little note: the fantasy sequence, maybe make it a little less sad." I'm like, "Why? How bad is it?" He's like, "Well, it's like the end scene of American Tail, the Don Bluth film, where he." He tries to find his father. He thinks he hears him, and so forth. It's kind of like that in a way. I'm like, oh right, okay. I need to turn up a little bit.
What's it like when you get notes like that? Asking you to adjust elements of the script.
To be honest, I really don't mind, because I mean, like, if I make a mistake, like, I have to correct it, like, because it's my job.
Absolutely.
But yeah, sometimes I would sometimes be often asked questions, like if there was a certain like saying that a character would say, like for example, when the characters say, "Got to see a coach by a train." Sometimes I would sometimes maybe get asked, like, is that a quote from the books or something? And I would say, yeah, it's from this thing here. I thought it'd be nice to add in. And so we do like to incorporate some of the original material in the stories as well.
Yeah.
Just to show that we do care about the franchise.
But of course, another element, I suppose, to this is with characters like Bill and Ben, who are so known for, sparring off each other and trying to wind each other up. This is a new opportunity in the CGI series to actually give them both their own voices. Originally, obviously, you've got Michelangelo's providing one unifying voice. So is there a challenge creating that kind of relationship properly with those two characters? Because obviously you know them so well from those original stories.
Yeah, I just kind of I just based them off like just bickering siblings, really. I think there was somebody or some twins or two siblings I watched or something online, and I thought this is actually quite inspiring like for Bill and Ben, so I just kind of based their bickering on those.
I wonder if they know.
Oh, I don't know. This was like years ago, so
Yeah. I really do enjoy the sentence scene. It's lovely.
I
Scenes
love
set
this
at
line.
night, so atmospheric. Yeah.
I love this line. It's just I love the line when it's just like, what do you mean this truck? Yes, that one. What that one? I just love that delivery.
Oh.
So that's a good thing, because I don't think we've ever had like an episode of Bill and Ben where they actually have one of their tricks played on them. When they're actually playing the joke, but they don't realize the tables has been turned on them.
And it's really, I mean, I think that's what I mean, I suppose, in that it really gives Edward a new dimension, and it makes him, I suppose, more of a caring fatherly figure, because he clearly knows them well enough to wind them up as well. Yeah. So these segments here, are you in? How involved are you?
I write both the intro and these the moral scenes at the end. I have to write these up, so sometimes these bits can be a bit of a challenging to try and work out what the moral of the story is.
Yeah.
And what the lessons that people would have to learn from. Which ones I think I might mention one of them maybe later on here, but yeah, this one seemed to turn out quite okay.
And often they reference previous episodes as well. So, Michael, do you get
Yeah, I have to do
involved in drawing the links to these older episodes?
yeah, I'd have to do my homework there, and I would watch online videos of the episodes just to get a reminder of these episodes. So, but then I would often have to. Sometimes I may get word back saying, "Yeah, this references this look back has already been covered by so and so script there. Is there any other ones?" And I have to do another scavenger hunt, look around to see, is there any other episodes that's it's kind of has a similar plot to this.
I suppose, as well as that, though, it must be quite nice because it creates a relationship between you and your colleagues, the other writers, and their episodes as well. So, does that make it all feel more connected? This new way of drawing the episodes together at the end.
Oh yeah, definitely, without doubt. Because everybody, because all the other writers on the team, like they've written some really nice stories, and it's always best, it's always nice to to support them and to to say great work on your story. I love this bit, and just make them feel happy.
Yeah,
make them feel proud of what they've done.
Yeah. So I suppose I really have to ask before we finish this episode as well.
Yeah.
With this and Engine of Many Colours, I think everyone would like to know, what was it like waking up and seeing it go out on television?
I will actually have to say here, I was very scared on the day of the broadcast, because I kept the secret for 1.5 years, and I didn't tell anybody apart from friends who I won't disclose who they are, but they kept they said we'll keep quiet on this here until the day. But yeah, seeing the day and seeing all the comments from the feedback from the fans, I was so moved. Literally, I was in tears because I was so moved by all the positive feedback to it, because I was literally really scared. In fact, from the very beginning, as when Andrew offered me the job, I was very scared of the feedback of the fan base, because I was one of them, and how could I manage the feedback? So, but yeah, I was very moved by the positive feedback, and I thank everybody for welcoming me on board.
Well, I think everyone would very much like to thank you for these episodes, because they've really gone down a treat. And speaking of which, I think we're now moving on to Heart of Gold.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Now, you've told me, Michael, that this was quite a difficult episode for you to make.
It was, because I really wanted to do an episode about Toby, because I just felt like he needed a good episode where, because some of the previous episodes I'd seen, he was often portrayed as, people thought, oh, he's old and useless and out there, but I just thought to myself, well, maybe he isn't really though. So the story is heavily inspired by the original Toby song by Michael Dahl and Jeannie Campbell, and it was basically from the lyrics, "Toby, there's still much that you can do," and then the lyrics show them what you can do. So I heavily took that on board and thought of a good plot. Well, I thought it was a good plot at the time of Toby, and to give him a good give him a role that proves that he's, he may be old, but he's still got a bit of youth still in him, and yeah, that's what became Heart of Gold.
And that intention for the story, does that ever come out of being that experience? Do you sort of spar with the other writers, thinking, I'd like to do this with this character, or I'd like to
sometimes
have a stab at that one?
Sometimes we write down some notes about characters now there, because when they ask us to write stories, we don't always disclose as to who the episode is about. Sometimes we would probably just say, well, maybe I might just write down this character, maybe this idea, and yeah, it's just that's kind of how it often works. But with this story in mind, this happened sometime after the workshops. And it was just in one of my notebooks. I just wrote down, writing out a story about Toby on the line. And then I just thought really hard. I was like, right, what can we do? So
I have to say, on a personal note, I love seeing characters like Toby up at the Earl's Castle.
Yeah, people often did question about where's Stephen during all this time in this episode. And I think it was originally written in the script. He was away for his yearly service at the Steamworks. So he's an old engine. He needs needs to be maintained every now and again. So the reason for Toby to be brought in is that, well, he is a unique engine, and he does look vintage. So he'd be the perfect choice to cover for him.
Exactly. Yeah. So when you're writing a character like Toby for this story, because I think it's fair to say it's been really well received and sort of taken as in this late stage of the show quite a crucial story for Toby as a character. So was that also a factor when you were writing it? Sort of, I want to write a really definitive story for Toby.
Well, I just kind of just thought I just wrote a story. I just basically just wrote a story about Toby. Really, I just thought right, this is how I think Toby would be portrayed as. Because sometimes when I write a story about a character, I sometimes give my own interpreted as to how I think they are portrayed and how they act in an episode. But yeah. I just hope I got it right here.
I think you did. I think everyone really thinks you did. So tell us a bit more about this dream sequence.
I think this was Andrew's idea, but I think it was my idea to give him. I can't remember whose idea it was to give Toby this color scheme, because I looked at it and I kind of noted that it kind of looks like he's in his Railway Series livery in the Clive Spong illustrations.
Yes.
So. In fact, by the way, I love that transition shot there. That was well devised.
Yeah, and of course, a lovely setup for the end as well.
Definitely.
Oh.
But yeah, we have a lot of fun writing up the fantasy sequences in that there, and just try and be creative. That's basically what the whole thing is. Just be creative with visuals and that there. But
yeah.
Yeah, but try not to make them a bit too convincing that people will mistake them for the real thing.
And yeah, even then, as off the wall as they can be, it always feels like it's working to express what the characters are thinking.
Yeah, definitely. Because we all have our own views of certain things, and the fantasy sequences show that.
Exactly. So. Michael, have you ever imagined yourself to be a windmill on a golf course?
The idea has never crossed me, but I don't know.
Well, if it's crossed Toby's, it could cross yours.
Well, I suppose.
I think it's kind of joyous as well. I really want to ask about these two rapscallions.
Yes.
Where do they come from, Michael?
They're actually. This is actually. I think this is probably where I have to thank a certain fan for this. These two characters were actually inspired by a fan video I came across some years back, and I based the robbers off them because they were quite funny in a way. So I just created them. And this sequence, by the way, it was heavily inspired by. I'm sure lots of train chases were inspired by this, but it was heavily inspired by Wallace and Gromit: The Wrong Trousers, because the setup feels similar to that in a way.
Yeah.
You have one train chasing a lover, and this bit here. In fact, I might have to. I think that bit there. I kind of might have to agree with some fans on this here. I did cringe at the crowbar scene. That wasn't originally how it was meant to go. I think originally it was meant to be the crowbar was meant to hit one of those point levers that was going to divert Toby out of the way, but like I said, a nod to Wrong Trousers. But I don't know. I don't think the animation team thought it would work or not there, but I don't know.
And yet the whole sequence is really dynamic. You've got these sort of these canted angles, and you've got these tight shots on Toby and stuff. So how much of that is explained in the script, and how much of it is left up to the director?
Yeah, I mostly just write down exactly what's happening, how fast Toby is going. He's his boiler's bubbling so fast, his gauges rise up, and that there he's getting on the crooks, and he's suddenly diverted onto siding out of the way. The crooks have now got away, and how will Toby catch them? And then we've cut to the next scene.
Oh, I love that transition.
Yeah, that's quite good. I love that. I also love that line. They kept that line in with the Earl saying, "Stand and deliver."
Yes.
I love that.
And the fact that he's in his dressing gown. I hope that was in the script as well.
Yes, it was.
Oh, brilliant.
It was.
It's funny, the whole thing with the human characters on the platform and that slightly mistaken conversation, I have to say, it does remind me of the ending of original stories like Bullseye's. With the balls on the platform, with the sweets and that kind of thing. It feels very...
Yeah, I think... I think the passengers were mostly inspired
original,
by...
authentic.
Yeah, I think the passengers were mostly inspired by the ones from Toby and the Stout Gentleman. I kind of inspired their comments from them.
Yeah. Do you enjoy writing the human characters as much as the engines, or are they their own challenge?
Oh yeah, because they're just great fun, really.
Yeah.
Fun to come up with dialogue.
Especially those kind of highly strung figures, like the thieves, I suppose. That's quite a different flavour, surely, to the other railway, people you might encounter on the railways.
Yeah, because there's just basically based off various villains, I've seen in various productions, Jasper and Horace, Sly and Gobbo, the goblins from Noddy's Twilight Adventures, and like I said, some various fan fiction series out there. So you get a lot of inspiration from quite a lot of things.
Is there anything you go back to? Maybe it's an episode or a book or something from a different franchise when you approach these stories. Is there
Sometimes I would actually look at some of the classics, because when I began doing writing and that there, I often read various classic novels from Roald Dahl or Edith Blyton or Agatha Christie or Sir Arthur Conan Doyle. Just look at various examples of how old style writing was done, and because Thomas is a period type TV show in the modern world, it's nice to try and incorporate some of that originality of writing into the series.
But that's really interesting. I think that you're not just going back to Thomas itself as a reference. You're going back to works that might have even been relevant to the Reverend W. Awdry when he was first publishing it. So I suppose I want to ask, do you find it important to reach for things outside of Thomas when writing professionally as well?
Only when it's necessary. Because we do want to make sure that Thomas stays true to his original source, but it's also nice to appreciate some other works of literature that if people get the reference, then they would say, "Oh, I remember that quote from this thing," and they can go and look it up.
Yeah.
Look back at some of the great works in that there.
It's quite a funny idea, isn't it? That for example, you said it was inspired by the train chase and the Wrong Trousers.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's interesting to imagine, because someone mentioned this to me the other day. The idea that they're going to experience the reference before the original source of it. People might see Heart of Gold, long before watching The Wrong Trousers.
Hmm. But yeah, I'm really pleased at how this episode turned out in the end. Like, especially from one of the feedback from my good friend Davey Moore, our fellow writers on Thomas and Friends. His reaction was just hilarious.
And do you have any involvement, going back to this writer's room idea, do you end up learning much about your colleagues' scripts, or do you all keep fairly within your own space when creating the
We like
stories?
to sometimes we like to keep within our own space there. I was brought on board with when I was keeping up to date with the current series out there. I was given some examples of previous scripts just to get an idea of like story plots and what way the show is written. So it's not really different compared to how I write the scripts on Pablo. Really, it's in fact the formula is just basically the same. Really.
Yeah.
But yeah, we'd often like to keep our stories private until come the next workshop. We actually do these little viewings where we can actually see each other's work and get inspired, get some feedback from other writers to see how do they feel about the stories before it's officially released.
That sounds like a really helpful way for you all to develop the pieces before they go into production.
Yeah. Plus, it also reminds us that as we've written, because sometimes we've pretty much forgotten the stories and the plots not there because we're working on current stuff.
Yeah.
And it's good to refresh our minds, really.
Well, Michael, Heart of Gold, a really beloved episode there, and I think I definitely enjoyed watching it again. It's a lovely set of characters for Toby to be around as well.
Definitely.
But speaking of ensembles, we're now moving on to The Great Little Railway Show, which features perhaps more engines than I've ever seen in any other Thomas episode. So tell us about that, working with a mammoth amount of characters in this anniversary year.
I actually because it was the anniversary thing, I wanted to try and incorporate maybe because I was commissioned to write Roll Engine, so I thought, before I write Roll Engine, I want to get this episode written, and this is actually my own little tribute to the Railway series, because not many people maybe get the idea of behind the story, but this is actually a nod, like a tribute to the making of the Railway series in a certain way, because well, I'll probably explain later on, but yeah, I wanted to maybe write an episode where we get to appreciate some of the characters that we have already we have renders of, but haven't been used that much. So I thought, well, it's nice to actually maybe have an episode where we actually give these characters time to shine and to show that we still remember them here. They're still working on Sodor, and people often wonder where have they been all this time. So I thought it'd be a nice way to incorporate that in.
Well, certainly. I mean, it brings such a roster of personalities back. But not just that, I suppose. It also means you get to incorporate so many of the voice cast. Now, I'm sure you must have met some of them. Does that affect when you write? Do you hear those voices that we all are now so familiar with, or do you try to keep separate?
I do. Yeah, I do often like to hear the character voices whilst I'm writing, and it just sometimes make me think what would this character say in this certain thing, and maybe if I write down a certain line or something point, I would think back to say if the Fat Controller was saying, I would think to myself, right now, how would Keith Wickham say this sentence, and I would think his delivery, and I think, yeah, maybe that could do a wee bit more in a sort of way, or no, that doesn't sound right. Let's just redo that again. Maybe he would probably say something more authority to this.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself reading the script out loud just to get that sense of the dialogue and the rhythm?
Yes, I would mostly back as to what I've done. Sometimes portray the voices every now and again just to get an idea as to how they sound. Also, I love the this callback to Great Race.
Yes, yeah. I mean, you've got the screens going on. It's such an interesting way to see the engines.
Yeah, definitely. Plus, it's also a good chance for me as well when I work I always have a chance to give each character their own chance to be on screen, and I often used to think to myself, right, which character would I like to write a story about? And Percy was among the list there, so I thought this would be a good episode for Percy.
I mean, it is funny, isn't it, to see him have that sequence, and
this is back chatting Gordon. I thought it was crazy.
Absolutely. Oh well, this is the thing as well. I think Percy in these stories, you've brought back a bit of that snarkiness as well, or the whole team has brought it back. Was that intentional?
Yeah, I sometimes thought there was a wee thing missing from Percy, so I don't know, just add that a little bit and see if it would work or not. And apparently it seems to have done that. And and also in this episode, I thought Sir Handel, I need to give Sir Handel some lines. So I thought, he hasn't spoken for a while. Let's give him a chance to shine on screen, really.
It's really nice to think that you're looking out for that aspect of it, actually, because I know that everyone's got their favourite characters.
Yeah,
it's nice to know that they're being considered, so that they're never gone for too long.
Yeah.
Did you lose any characters from this story?
As far as I can remember, I think Duncan was in one sequencer, but I had to take him out there because it would mean like a waste. I didn't want to drag out his voice actor to record one line and then that was it for the whole series. So we wanted to make sure that we have a suitable amount of characters that we have the voice actors at hand, so that they can record their lines whilst recording our episodes as well.
Yeah.
So I just thought that it would just be fair, like, for the other voice actors out there. But I know people would really want other characters to be brought back out there. But it's just more or less like would it be possible to for them to be brought on, but also with their, in terms of the production wise of getting their voice actors in. But it just seems unfair. Like they come and just record one line whilst everybody else is recording more lines than they are. I just didn't know if that seemed fair.
See, it's quite funny though, because obviously we've just come from Heart of Gold, which is so driven by Toby's character, and Hunt the Truck, in fairness, which is very focused on Edward and Bill and Ben. But here, it because of the enormous set of characters, it almost feels maybe a bit more farcical. I don't know if this reach. It kind of makes me think of those Ealing comedies, that sense of hysteria from a big group of people.
Yeah, I get what you mean there.
Yeah. Do you prefer more? Well, it might be an unfair question, but do you enjoy the more singular narratives, or do you enjoy the challenge of having such a big cast?
Well, I do like to actually take the challenge to see, like, is it possible to do this, and then see what turns out in the end. In fact, in this episode in particular, like, I think it was pretty much like we must went through about maybe 2 drafts of the script before we, it was ready to go into production. So
yeah,
even the second draft was only like just a small tweak of a line, and that was pretty much it, really.
Yeah.
But other than that, like, I'm just surprised, like, how much of the original word and all is being brought in.
Yeah. I'd say in particular, I find it very entertaining having the Arsdale engines on the bed. It was something that was in the script, or was it?
Yeah, because I wanted to make sure, like, because I often used to ask, like, well, how would the Arsdale engines get there? And I thought, well, Percy needs to explain, like, to get Duck and Oliver to bring them, so they have those reasons for them to be brought over.
Yeah.
Now, as I mentioned earlier on here, this story was heavily inspired by behind the scenes of the Railway series, and this is what I mean here, because when the Railway series was being written, the Reverend Audrey would lend his model engines to the artists to get perspective angles for various shots. And for those who know me, I take great fascination of these models, and I thought it'd be a nice way to incorporate that into the TV series in a way. In fact, that model of Percy there, I written down that we want to try and get the original version of Percy to be shown. And as far as rendering the design wise, it's pretty close to what we intended to go for. The only thing that's missing was just the dome, but that's absolutely fine.
I mean, it was such a lovely detail. I remember when people first saw it.
Yeah.
The reaction to it. The show had done something so niche, but really convincingly.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, what was that like? Were you involved with the process? Was that along with writing it, or did that come?
Yeah, because I wrote down there it was going to involve Andrew's models. I sent them a message saying, "Look, I've got some profile photographs of the original engines that I took back in 2016 for my model railway research. Would you like me to send them over to you for references for the designs?" And they said, "Yes, definitely." And it said in the script that Revenology's layout appears, and I was very concerned at the time as to which layouts would be shown. So I had to contact Ian McHugh, and I says, "Ian, what year year period is the series set in?" And he says, "Oh, it's between late 1940s to the early 60s." And so I thought, right, Farquhar Mark 1 will be around at that stage, so that's the layout we're going for. And sure enough, I had my replica there, and I sent the reference photographs there. And the photograph they used in the end was actually from a model railway website. So I'm very surprised they used that one instead of the ones I sent them. But yeah, I'm very surprised, very pleased that they used it.
But I think, speaking for everyone, there's it's wonderful to have that level of detail, and it must have taken a considerable amount of time. Not just the design, but how it fits into the story. It's such a nice little reference,
Yeah,
and quite niche.
yeah.
Do you ever, do you have to do much consideration with because of it's more of a reference for the fans, I suppose.
In a way, yeah, for diehard fans in a way, but it's also a nice new as well to show that that wee bit of trivia, like from said for the making of the railway, that something started out as a toy train, and how big it's become since then.
Naturally, I mean, it's so lovely to pay tribute to the Reverend Wilbur Audrey during this anniversary year in that way as well,
Yeah.
because it's such a
Yeah.
personal item.
Yeah.
Really lovely. Well, there you have it, Michael. There's your 3 episodes.
3 episodes.
Yeah. Now, very shortly, we're going to be moving on to something a little bit different.
More challenging.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. We're here to hear about it. But definitely a real pinnacle for this year, I would say, for the show. So Thomas and the Royal Engine. I have to ask, how did it come about?
Well, George, it all started one autumn morning at a writer's workshop in London, somewhere in London. There was me sitting in the workshop, not knowing what to expect. And then MQ stands up and he says, "Right, guys, as you know, 2000 this is 75th anniversary, and we want to make something special of it. So we want to do a special anniversary episode." He turns to me and he says, "Michael, we want you to write the episode." And I was like, "What? What?" He's like, "Yeah." It's like, "Yeah, we want you to write the episode." I'm like, "Okay. No pressure. Good. Okay. So, yeah, I'll give you some wee notes here to work on. And, yeah, we'll go from there." And I was thinking to myself, "Oh my God, what is going on here?" So I was panicking, really. So when I got back from the workshop, the first thing I did was I called Andrew because it was the first time that he wasn't with us on the team, and I called him and I says, "Andrew, they've asked me to write the 75th anniversary." "Oh, congratulations!" "No, Andrew, no, I'm freaking out. Why? What's wrong?" He says, "How the hell am I going to top the Adventure Begins? That's the best special. How the heck am I going to top that? Everybody's going to be. I don't know what to do." And he's like, "Calm down. Just calm down. Just do what you normally do. Just write what you think is best." And I was like, "But Andrew, what did you do that? What did you do that make that special so good? It's so wonderful." He's like, "Well, I had some passes. Who helped you?" "The Reverend Audrey." Why? I just pretty much redid his stories. "Oh yeah, you did." "But Andrew, this is a whole original idea." And I was like, "Just calm down. Just do what you normally do." And I'm like, Okay, no pressure, no pressure. And so this is how the episode came out. So
Wonderful.
I just want to make this clear as well. Like this special is by no means meant to be competitive to Adventure Begins. In my opinion, I think it's also the best special, but I don't know. I don't know where this one is ranked. Might just be, I don't know, probably in the top 10, I suppose.
I think it's safe to say it went down pretty well.
Yeah.
but at the start of the production, because he's gone now, but we have to talk about him. You can't have known from the beginning that you would get Prince Harry involved, presumably.
Yeah, because I really did not know, because I didn't. We were going to get members of the royal family involved as well in this special, because like I said, I was panicking when I was writing the special because we were going to get these members of the royal family on board. So I thought I have to make sure I get this done right, and have to do a lot of research as well as to how you meant to address the royal family. What words can you say and not say to them? And so yeah, I had to do quite a lot of research on that there, and had to go back and forth and see, from Ian and David Snowden to see what works and what didn't. But also, this being my first special as well, it was quite a challenge for me as well, just to expand more of a simple 7-minute story.
Yeah.
I just love that reference that I have Thomas given, because I just kind of found that reference very fitting. Wisely, it's just count on the line.
But not just the dialogue, Michael. I mean, I think that there's so much visual comedy in all of this. You've got Thomas popping up in the middle of the big station with as many characters as you can fit on screen.
Yeah.
Do you find that a challenge to keep the balance of visual humor and also in the dialogue as well? Or
Yeah, I try and incorporate quite a bit of that in. But there's sometimes some of this is mostly inspired by the animation team. They have their own ways of making some scenes funny as well.
Yeah.
Like, for one scene you'll see in a wee minute here, which is seeing the Fat Controller in the shower wearing his hat. I mean, yeah, I will admit that I did write like he's in the shower, but I didn't say he was wearing his hat though, so that's actually quite funny. That is definitely quite funny. I actually like that.
So what's your relationship to the animation team when producing episodes and indie specials like this?
To be honest, I just let them do their own thing, really.
Yeah.
I just hope that they get the ideas to what I visualized when I wrote down the script, and just see what they come up with. And from what I've seen so far, they've pretty much done exactly that.
Yeah. What was it like writing for the Fat Controller in the main role? That I really have to ask, because everyone loves Topham so much.
Yeah, it was just very simple to write, really.
Yeah.
Just make sure he was a big authority figure and not there. Gordon Goes Foreign. In fact, the Gordon Goes Foreign reference, that was actually key references that I was given by Ian to make this episode or the special.
Really?
Yeah, the other one I think was Lady Hat's birthday party. So that was kind of the key thing.
Yeah.
It's a thing Ian kind of like think that was one of Ian's favorite episodes.
That's very comforting to know.
I must confess here, like when the special broadcasted, I got a wee bit of a small inquiry from my mother as to whether this scene with Doja Hat was actually based off her, and I said, nope, that's exactly how she's portrayed in the show. Are you sure it's not based off me? I swear to you, mother, it's fine. So she's still not convinced though, but it's true.
Did you enjoy writing for her? The character, not your mother.
Yeah, I actually did enjoy. Just try and keep it the old spirit of the character there.
Yes, yeah. See, I love these extra details, though. You got Thomas in the bunting and what the Fat Controller's doing in the carriage.
Yeah.
Is there? Do you feel any pressure to make these scenes? Thomas traveling across the landscape. We all know that sort of thing.
Yeah.
Do you feel you've got to embellish it?
Yeah, just say how it feels, what Thomas's surroundings is like. Because one thing I do like when it comes to writing my scripts, I do like to mention the atmosphere and the surroundings of the story, just to get you into the story, really. So, like when I first did my first script for Pablo, like I spent the first paragraph literally writing the whole surroundings and the atmosphere before bringing the character in the second paragraph, and I think that was kind of what Andrew liked about my writing. He says it kind of reflected that old storybook style. That
So presumably that
I'd seen.
differs from the other writers in approach. That's quite unique.
I wouldn't really know, um, but that's just what I've been using since I began writing.
It's a very interesting approach, I have to say. But I think it must be quite valuable to get that sense of atmosphere, especially in a show like Thomas that's so beloved and classic, and we have to be honest, quite old at this
Yeah.
point.
Oh yeah, I must point out here, this is actually a bit of an old joke of mine I put in here, where he says you're growing up in the world. Thomas looks down from his great height. He's like, "Yeah, you're not kidding." I laughed so hard when I wrote that one. I thought, yes,
Yeah.
that's a good one.
How nice to see Beresford back as well.
Yeah, just thought that'd be, is there anybody on the mainline that Thomas has met before? So I thought, yeah, this might be a good callback for Jenny Beyond Sodor.
Yeah.
Incorporate that in.
I suppose that's its own challenge as well, though, Michael, because this story is moving away from Sodor. Perhaps there isn't as much to draw from in the location. So, was that a challenge, or was it quite freeing?
Well, I actually had to try and when I was planning this story, I had to try and work exactly what route Thomas is taking to London. So I had to first of all bring up a map of the British Isles, go to where Barrow and Furness is, and then plot, look up railway lines from 1960s or so forth, from Barrow and Furness to London, and then I had to choose which one of them was the route that Thomas took. But as I was asked to bring Beresford back, so I thought, right, where is he based at? So I know where he is, and I think he was somewhere like far east of England. So I thought, wait a minute, that would take Thomas ages to get all the way there, and he'll be behind time. So I was trying to think like, well, maybe Beresford is based somewhere around here somewhere, so that makes it a bit more easy to work with.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think I can't remember which line I chose this, but yeah, it's one of these lines that Thomas takes that was taken from this map I found.
That really adds to the story, I think, to know that behind the scenes you've put in that planning. Really.
Plus, like it says in the story as well, that Thomas has to be in London by 3:00, so I had to make sure that what time Thomas leaves Sodor and see like how much time it'll take for him to get to here and here.
Yeah.
So yeah, you have to make sure that I get all the right in a way.
Fantastic attention to detail.
Yeah. And also with this as well, with like the Flat Controller getting his suit damaged and Thomas getting his bandage ripped away, we have to make sure that each of them have an even set of flaws that they have along their way. So each have an equal disadvantage of their appearance when you get to London.
But see, that seems so resonant of Audrey when he wrote Thomas and Bertie.
Yeah,
making sure that Thomas and Bertie had their own advantages and disadvantages. So
yeah,
was that part of the process?
Yeah, I'd say it's definitely inspired by that there as well.
Yeah. And here we go.
I love that line where he just said, "You're home and dry," and he gets splashed with water. I'm like, that's a very wordy pun, that one.
And what exact? Well, yeah, and what a way to bring in the Duchess as well. It's quite interesting to me that you introduce her and immediately Thomas has a reason to be cross with her because she's got in the way of his great day. What was it like writing their relationship?
Well, Duchess is a character who I think I based her off a servant character from Downton Abbey or something maybe from the Crown TV series in a way that just portrays a very worried servant for the royal family. Just wants to make sure that she's doing the best she can to please her royal passengers, and doesn't want anything to get in the way of preventing her tasks from being completed. So, like for this, for example, here, where she scolds Thomas for, well, she thinks he's taken one of her coaches when clearly he hasn't, and she's all getting fussed up about that. But when she realizes, oh, it's my coach is in the carriage. Terribly sorry. Yes. Then she just gets all flustered up and carries on with her tasks.
That seems very integral to her character. She seems like a little bit of a warrior, but I find that really interesting because she's got such nobility. She is the Duchess, and as you say, she's based on royalty.
Yeah.
So perhaps you wouldn't expect her to have that sort of personality. I think it makes it more interesting.
And I'd say this also reflects his assistants at Buckingham Palace. I mean, they would spend every day of their lives trying to make sure they do their job correctly, following the book of
Yeah.
looking after the royals. So I'd say Duchess is definitely the same as well. She has to make sure she's in tip-top condition. Everything has to be all set and ready, and has to be there on time come the date or time for the royals to make their appearance and that there.
Yeah. And of course, voiced by Rosamund Pike.
Yes, I didn't find out that Rosamund was doing that. It was playing Duchess until I think probably some couple of months before the special was released, and she does a fantastic job playing the character. Really.
Yeah.
Because I didn't. We were trying to think like who would play Duchess, and I think at one stage I kind of pitched what about Helen Mirren to play Duchess, because she played the Queen in the film The Queen, so I thought maybe there might be a nice nod to that there. But Rosamund Pike was just a fantastic choice. I mean, I've heard her play Moomin Mama in the Moon Valley series, and of course Lady Penelope in Thunderbirds Are Go. She definitely can deliver a good line.
Yeah. Clearly no stranger to
No.
these animated shows.
No.
I
just love that. Surely, mate. The water tank.
What? He's a great little character, isn't he? Yeah.
Oh, poor Thomas.
Lovely stuff. I mean, again, I have to say, I think the physical comedy in this is just so entertaining. Do you enjoy getting Thomas all covered in dirt and mud? Is that fun, part of the process?
Well, just if there's a reason why. I mean, I must confess, like it's gonna sound really weird. I kind of enjoyed writing the sequence when Thomas gets ill during Free the Roads. I somehow just find that quite enjoyable to write, but no, I had to make sure like he does get better in the end. Things all work out fine in the end.
Of course, yeah.
But actually, I actually kind of wrote down in the script that the Fat Control's hat, it started off as a topper and ended up like it ended up looking similar to the hat of Buster Keaton, and I'm so glad they showed that visual reference. I was like, yes,
yeah,
because Buster Keaton was very enthusiastic about railways, so that's a nice nod to him.
Was he really?
Yeah. In fact, one of his last film was about a fella traveling, looking at the sights of the States whilst traveling on a railway inspection trolley. And on his birthday, I think it was on his birthday during the time of filming that film, he was given a present of a Mammoth Livestream traction engine, which he absolutely adored. He's like, "Oh, this is so awesome! Can we play it outside?" And I was like, "That's so nice."
See, it just makes me think it's a shame that his Mammoth didn't turn up now in a Great Little Railway Show.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
Now, this is lovely. As you say, Rosamund Pike cast later in the process after writing. But obviously, you know what Thomas is going to sound like. You know what Percy will sound like. You know what the Fat Controller will sound like. So is there any difference when writing these scripts? When you have to write for characters and they don't yet have a voice?
Well, sometimes I would sometimes maybe describe the way so that, say, for example, if memory serves me right, like when Duchess is first introduced in the script, I said like she's a very a large tender engine, and she speaks in a very posh type manner of deep authority towards Thomas, like sort of like a typical old school Victorian lady of some sort, looking down at somebody of the lower class. But then, when she finds out her mistake, she suddenly reverts from that posh accent to this a voice that sounds very identical to the person who she's talking to. She's like, "Oh dear, okay, sorry about that."
She does seem very earthly in that way.
Yeah.
I think you could. It's a compliment, really, because you could definitely see her fitting into the Steam team on Sodor. I think. Was it important for them to be friends by the end?
Oh, of course. I mean, it would be called Thomas and Friends for a reason.
Well, that's quite true. That's very true. Yes.
Also, must point out as well here. This is actually my first story about Thomas as the centered character. Because I think at the time I was thinking about doing a Thomas story, but the plot just didn't come in time. I thought, well, when Ian asked me to write this, I thought, well, I'm not kind of ready yet to give Thomas his own story, but I'll use this as a beginner's step into this here, just to try and see, can I get Thomas's character right? And yeah, in this special, I kind of made Thomas my own thing, really. More or less somebody who happens to be there at the right time, and he's always there, ready to listen to somebody without jumping to conclusions out of nowhere.
As a writer, in that respect, do you think it's important to give these classic characters your own spin and your own version of their voice?
Slightly, but just to make sure that I don't stray off from their actual personality, really.
Yes.
But I like to give them, because characters evolve. I mean, we all evolve over time. Thomas has evolved over many years, so I think it's just sometimes I would maybe like to show a bit more of that little evolvement, that Thomas is slowly growing up. Like he can still be cheeky, but he shows like he's growing up in a way and knows how to communicate with his elders in a way.
And what do you think about him going beyond Sodor in that respect? Is that another part of him? As you say.
Well, he said he wanted to go and see the world, so it's a good step for him.
Yeah.
Or in this case, a good wheel turn for him. So.
Were you excited to take Thomas beyond Sudrian shores then?
Well, of course, because Thomas wants to see the world. I would like to see it as well someday, but yeah, it's a good way for us to explore.
Yeah.
I also must point out as well, Thomas saying little lenses can do, because that was actually something I felt really proud incorporating, because that was one thing I kind of thought to myself whilst writing it. What is it we haven't heard Thomas say for a while? And little lenses can do big things was one of those things I remembered. I thought, yes, I have to bring that back. So that was.
It's a lovely reference, especially because a certain film also has its anniversary this year.
Well, I must actually confess that I actually had forgotten that Magic Railroad was actually going to be celebrating its 20th anniversary this year. So I think it was probably I think both myself and Sam Wilkinson had to try and work in some ways of making nice references to the film, just to show that we remembered it and it's celebrating its anniversary. So, like Thomas sneezing, that's a bit of a reference there. And like I said, little engines could do big things.
Yeah.
That was another one.
Was it important? I have to ask actually. The Duchess was a steam engine because.
Yes, because I chose which engine we should base her off, and I think there was talks about maybe making the roll engine a diesel engine, but I says no, it has to be a steam engine because, well, first of all, steam engines are more glamorous, they're more they look spectacular, decorative in a way when you see them carry the roll arms, but also is that you get to. There's actually there was a steam engine that did pull the roll train, and we used the Duchess of Sutherland for reference, because she was pulling the role train for a good number of years. So yeah, we had to make sure it was a Duchess class.
I do like the design, I have to say, and I like her livery as well.
It reminds me very much of like how, I don't know, sometimes it just kind of reminds me of just the crown, the royal crown, really. Like,
Yeah,
because you see there's a mixture of like gold, cream, and red, and as well as all the jewels out there. So
yeah.
it reminds me of that there.
Was it interesting writing for the Queen?
Yeah, it was because I didn't know who was going to. I just thought, what the Queen say? So I think I was kind of. I think I looked at references of. I think maybe the BFG for like references to how the Queen would speak in a way, and also acknowledged the Railway series books as well, because I learned that Prince Charles had a collection of the Railway series books in the royal the palace's nursery, and
Of
as far as I know, they're still there to this day. The next generation to look at.
Well, you never know. Maybe Thomas and the Royal Engine will join them, seeing as there is that book.
I say so, yeah, because members of the royal family have read it, so
Yeah.
I'd say it is.
Well, that concludes our watches of your work, Michael. And what a lovely way to finish off, I would say, with the Royal Engine, because
Yeah.
everyone I've met really, really appreciated it as a real celebration of the show in this anniversary year, and also the original material, as you say.
Yeah, I really want to make sure that we stay true and stay make sure we pay a big tribute to Thomas's heritage there. So yeah, it was a big honor to write that special. Like I said at the very start, it was also the most nerve-wracking as well. So I was throughout the whole production of this special, I was constantly like asking how things were going and. Is everything all going according to plan out there? And I kept being told to be reassured, like, it's fine, don't worry, we I'm doing that there. And all the while, I'm just panicking as to what it's going to turn out, because if I get this wrong, like, my whole reputation will be down the drain, really. So
There was
yeah,
definitely an amount of pressure when working on it. But was
yeah, yeah. And then come the day of its release, like, I was like, I remember I didn't get much sleep the night before because I was very worried to what the reaction would be. And when I saw the finished thing, I was like, wow, this is really good. And now to see the comments, and I was very scared to see the comments. So, but again, I'm really excited. Really liked the Roll Engine, and of course they love Duchess as well. So I'm really pleased it turned out quite well. I mean, yeah, there are some things I say people didn't quite agree with, but we can't please everyone. But I'm glad we pleased a good number of people.
I think you certainly did. And to you, Michael, and to the rest of the team working on it, a real thank you, because it's been lovely.